Today I'm going to be starting a series on Mystery Babylon, the harlot that we read about in the book of Revelation. This is going to be a several-part series. I'm going to try to keep each section fairly brief. I hope you'll watch the whole series. I think you will find it very enlightening. The reason I'm doing this video is because I believe the Lord has given me some insight into the identity of the harlot. A lot of people think that the harlot is a major world city like New York or Rome or Vatican City. Some people think that the harlot is the Roman Catholic Church. There are people who think that the harlot, Mystery Babylon, is the United States. There are so many ideas that people have and that have been sort of promulgated throughout history, throughout the history of the church, about who is the harlot, who's Mystery Babylon. The early Christians may have thought it was Rome and the Antichrist was Nero. That has sort of been a thread that's been carried forward during the Reformation. It was the Catholic Church that was the harlot, as well as, you know, having something to do with the Antichrist and the Pope and this confusion about those identities. But what I want to do is sort of clarify for you who the harlot is. Now, one of the clues that were given in Revelation is her name. Her name is going to tell us a lot about where to look to find out who she is. Her name is, Mystery Babylon. Babylon has another name, and that is Babel. If you look in the Strong's Concordance, you're going to see that Babel and Babylon are the same thing. They're the same place. They're the same geographic location. They are identical. They are synonymous with one another. So we could call the harlot Mystery Babylon, or we could call her Mystery Babel. Now, when we're looking at symbols in Revelation, one of the things that is a good Bible study practice is to find the first mention of something in scriptures. And we're going to be looking at this a little more in another video. But the first mention of something often gives us an understanding of a person or something in seed form. So if we go back to the beginning, to the book of Genesis, usually, these things are found in Genesis. If we go back to Genesis, we'll find the identity of the harlot in seed form when we look at the city of Babel. But before we actually get into the city of Babel, its foundation and all of that, what I want to do is sort of give you an overview of Satan's plan, okay? And basically his is a plan of rebellion. Rebellion is the big word. And eventually there's going to be a judgment of all of the rebels who've lived. All of the entities, fallen angels, people, whatever, are going to be judged one day. There's going to be a judgment of the rebels. So the very first rebellion that occurred, of course, was in the Garden of Eden with the fall. Okay, Satan tempted Eve. Eve took the fruit. She gave it to Adam. And they sinned. Okay, that is the first rebellion, when they went against the command of God. The second time we see something bad happening is with Cain, when Cain who slew his brother Abel. And we know from things that Jesus said in the New Testament that Cain was basically enticed, tempted, seduced. I don't know how you want to put it. The idea was suggested to him that he should kill his brother. And we know that Satan is a murderer, and that he's been a murderer from the beginning. And the very first murder that occurred was when a man killed his brother. Death and murder began in the very beginning. That was not a good way to go. Eventually, there was a lot of people on earth, and we're going to get to the time just before the flood. And there was an incursion of fallen angels, also known as the Watchers, and these were angelic spirit beings who took on human form. It was their job basically to watch over humanity. And rather than doing good by people, they decided they wanted to procreate with them, kind of become one with them, one of them. And so they saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful. This is Genesis 6. They took them as wives and they had children by them. So these are the fallen angels, and the fallen angel incursion I'm just going to put right here as being kind of the next big rebellion thing that happened on this timeline. This is a timeline of rebellion and how God is going to judge it. Okay, so once the fallen angels came, they brought with them technology, how to do war, all kinds of information, which, you know, you would look at this information and go, well, that isn't information good. Well, not when there's a lot of evil in the world, because all it does is promote more evil. So what happened was the level of violence and wickedness increased on the earth as the level of knowledge that mankind attained went up. Okay, in the book of Enoch, which is not part of the canon, but still was part of what the apostles read and knew, you know, back in the day. And there's a lot of quotes from the book of Enoch in the New Testament. So the understanding was that these fallen angels really messed with humanity, really messed with God's plan. And we don't know how Satan was involved with this, but you can bet that he had his finger in the pie somewhere along the way. So as the violence increased and the human race was more and more corrupted, God looked at what was happening and he saw that the level of corruption among just the genetic code and all of that in people as well as animals was being very corrupted, and that if things got to a certain point, then there wouldn't be anybody through whom the Messiah could come. So Noah was perfect in his generation, and he was the person then that had faith, and God chose him to save people, group of people and some animals from the flood that he was going to send. This is a kind of a judgment of God, but the fallen angels were never judged. Okay, that actually is going to be happening toward the end. We read about that in Jude, I think, where the judgment is reserved for that great day, the day at the end. So even though they were judged in the sense of their judgment is coming, they were placed in confinement. So the fallen angels, rather than being thrown into the lake of fire, which that'll happen at the end, they are placed in the pit, and Apollyon is the leader of that group, according to what we read in Revelation. He's the king of the angels of the bottomless pit. And so they are all in the pit right now. They will be released at the fifth trumpet. All these fallen angels that, intermarried with human women, they're going to show up a little bit later on here. So the children of this union between the Watchers and human women were called the Nephilim. And when these children of the Watchers died, their spirits didn't have a place to go. They weren't put in the pit. They couldn't go to Sheol because they weren't people. So the demons are the spirits that sort of wander the earth looking for a body to inhabit. The demons are going to be very important when we look at the harlot, Mystery Babylon, because the harlot is in the wilderness when we see her in Revelation 17. And to be in the wilderness means you're in the habitation of demons. So the harlot is going to have a kind of demonic infestation that happens with her. So the flood came, and then Noah and his family, the waters receded and they went out, and their children had children, and so on and so forth. And we had this little post-flood world that God had basically commanded people to spread out over the earth. I mean, it all seems logical for us that people should spread out on one hand, but on the other hand, it also seems logical for us that people would want to congregate together. Why would you want to spread out? Don't you want to just hang out and reinforce each other and encourage and sort of bless each other? Well, there are good blessings and there are bad blessings, okay? There is synergy that happens within a group. And within the context of this post-flood world, not all the information that people gained prior to the flood was gone. When we look at ancient structures, like the pyramids, for example, people have no idea how those things were constructed. They're very, very, very old. The technology to be able to do this is rather mysterious. We have really no idea how they did it, but they did. And it wasn't like they were just using stone axes and, they weren't Neanderthals. Okay? So this information still went through into the post-flood world. If you have people scattering, you're not going to get that synergy that comes when people are working together and everybody is, putting their thoughts in and ideas and so on. Right around this time, there was a guy whose name was Nimrod. The name Nimrod means a rebel. He was the very first king. And he was a king before kings even existed. The only king that anybody knows about was, basically God as king. He is the king. And then, of course, Adam as having dominion over the earth was basically king over the earth at the time, that he was created. Nimrod wanted to take this role of being king over the whole earth, kind of like, another Adam taking control. But he was going to do this in rebellion to God. He did not want to follow God. And instead of encouraging people to spread out over the earth, he decided to consolidate people in cities. So he had a group of cities that, basically he was the king over these cities. It was a little mini empire. And in scriptures, he is a type of the Antichrist who is going to come. Now, when we read about Babel, the city of Babel and the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11, we also come across what I'm going to call the Cabal. A Cabal is a group of people who work together for nefarious purposes. Okay, so we would call them people who conspire together to come up with a plan and do something that is wrong or not good or is not going to be helpful or is against God. There's a lot of ways you can look at a Cabal. But I'm going to be calling this group, this is the Babylonian Cabal. Now, here's what these people said, and we're going to look at this in more detail later on. They said, let us make bricks and use tar for mortar. Let us build a city. Let us build a tower. Let us make a name for ourselves. Okay. This sort of harkens back a little bit to Satan in Isaiah chapter 14, where he says, I'm going to ascend. I will do this. I will have my throne above God's. I will. And the Cabal says, we will. Let us. Ourselves. So what these people are doing is wanting to make a name for themselves apart from God. Now, when Abraham comes on the scene a little bit later on, God says, I want you to leave Ur of the Chaldees, which is basically Babylon, which the Chaldeans and the Babylonians, same thing. He says, I want you to leave Babel and I will make of you a great name. So God wants to make a name for believers. Non-believers want to make a name for themselves, okay? And that phrase, make a name for yourself, is all about immortalizing or memorializing who you are, okay? That you're a great person, and it's all about achieving a kind of greatness apart from God. Okay, so God says came down and he looked at what was going on. He saw all this and he said, if we don't do something about this, nothing that they imagine will be impossible for them. You got to think about what this means. What God is saying is that whatever these guys want to do, because they're together and they have this synergy thing going, and probably because they still have the residual knowledge that was given to them during the time before the flood, if they can think it, they can do it. And that's a scary thought. So God didn't judge them, okay? He didn't mitigate this disaster by a flood. What he decided to do was to confuse their languages. So that's what he did. So the word Babel has two meanings. One of the meanings is gate of God, and the other meaning is confusion. So both of those meanings hold for this city. If you're part of Nimrod and the Cabal, it's the gate of God as far as you're concerned. But the way God looks at it is as confusion. And actually the people at the time saw it that way too. So when God told the people to spread out, they didn't do it. They rebelled. Nimrod became their king. The Cabal said, let us, build bricks and, mortar and make these cities and this tower. And it wasn't like they were going to go out and do the bricks. Okay, no. They were going to have people underneath them be their servants, their slaves, cooperatively build the bricks, be a part of the dream. And of course, they weren't going to get their hands dirty. But nevertheless, the Cabal should be thought of as separate from Nimrod, who was the king. All right, so God confused their languages. People spread out over the whole earth. Now, what you have to understand is that when you leave your country and you go somewhere else, it doesn't mean that everything you ever learned from where you used to be is now gone. So, for instance, when my relatives came over from Norway, my great-grandmother came over from Norway. When she got to Minnesota, she still spoke Norwegian. She brought the old customs from the old country over to her, new life in a new country, and you bring that with you. And then you pass that on down through your family line. And I have several things that belong to her. I know the stories that my grandmother told about my great-grandmother when she was growing up. And I can see how she transferred a lot of the old stuff into her new life here in the United States. The same thing is true with these people from Babel. They would bring their Babylonian world with them wherever they went. And they were scattered throughout the world. So when we look at the harlot, Mystery Babylon, in the book of Revelation, and we see that she sits on many waters, we realize that this is the city that got spread out over the whole earth. This is the city that got spread out. Now, Babel never went away then. The Cabal has always existed in parts of the world. Okay, the people wanting to make a name for themselves. They build organizations and institutions, and they build buildings to commemorate their greatness and monuments to their greatness. All of that stuff comes out of Babel. That's all Babylonian. So, Babel has been here ever since the Tower of Babel, and God did not judge Babel at that time. He merely mitigated the disaster that was about to take place. If knowledge continued to increase and people began to cooperatively work together to do this evil, you would eventually have this escalation in violence and wickedness, and you'd be back to kind of square one again. And by the way, even though the fallen angels were in the pit, the demons, the children of these watchers are still present, right? And remember, the harlot, Mystery Babylon, is in the wilderness. She gets empowered, gets information from demonic entities. And after she's destroyed, it says the place where she is becomes the haunt of demons and every foul spirit. That's in Revelation chapter 18. I want you to know that we've got a connection here between the demonic realm and the Cabal. And also, of course, I think Nimrod was demonically possessed as well. All right, so now what we've got is this harlot Babylonian Cabal system that brings institutions, organizations. There's a top-down pyramid hierarchy. It started with Nimrod being the king, and then you've got the Cabal, and then you've got the people who are actually doing the work at the bottom. And this is a structure that we're going to talk about in another video that is still working today. But there's something very strange that happened over the course of time. And that is that for whatever reason, however it happened, the Cabal became more powerful than kings. So when we read in Revelation that the harlot is over kings, that she has a position in a hierarchy above kings, that is very strange, because in the beginning Nimrod was over the city of Babel, and presumably over these guys too, but somewhere along the line the roles got reversed, where the Cabal became the top gun, the top dog, the head of the whatever, and the kings were underneath the Cabal. Okay, this is a really interesting piece of information I think that we need to know with regard to when we see the woman who's riding the beast. Okay, and remember, I'm just doing an overview timeline so you can kind of understand how this plays out in the big picture. When the people who lived at Babel had their languages confused, they spread out over the whole earth, and that's how the show has gone for years and years and years and years, thousands of years. Babel is basically over. The Cabal, the demonically controlled Cabal, is over what is going on in the world, and of course behind all of that is Satan. Okay, Satan is the one who sort of runs the show, and he has people or spirits underneath him and people working for him in this present world system. And really that is a word that applies to the harlot. It's a system of control. It's also a system of brainwashing, manipulation, where you can, if you're higher up, you can get those beneath you to do your bidding, make your bricks for you, build your monuments for you, if you use the right kind of persuasion, whether it's incentives, rewards, money, fame, whatever, or whether it's punishment, and threats. And the world has gone back and forth between times of war and times of peace and prosperity. And this is part of the harlot's deal too. This is part of the Babylonian system. It's a system of control and manipulation, and you can manipulate by making things bad or by making them good. So it's a system, and we'll talk more about that in another video as well. But that system has continued up through now. And that's why the harlot is the great city who sits on many waters, who is over kings. Okay, she is over kings. Now, someday soon, hopefully, in the near future, we're going to be raptured, okay? And this is when the rapture of the priest kings, the child of Revelation 12, the group that comprises the 24 elders in heaven, this is when we're taken out. After we're in heaven, the Lamb receives the scroll. Christ will get the scroll. And the first 4 seals are going to be opened. The first seal is when we get the rider on the white horse. Okay, and I believe that that is the Antichrist person, that he shows up on a white horse. He's coming like Christ. He's coming like a savior. The system, the Babylonian system, is going to be present at the time when this guy comes out. So the system is still here, which is why the harlot is riding the beast. Okay, remember, she's over kings. He's given a crown so that he can rule, but she still is sitting on him. She's controlling the situation, because somewhere along the line things got flipped, where the Cabal is controlling the rulers of the world. So during this period of time between when that first seal is broken and when the abomination of desolation takes place, which is right here, 6th trumpet, the harlot is still in control. Okay, the harlot is still in control. Right through here. This is the rider on the white horse, is also the scarlet beast that we read about in Revelation chapter 17. The white horse rider is also the 7th king. So we learn that there is a 7th king, there is an 8th king. The 7th king is going to die and come back as the 8th king. I've talked about all that on some other videos that I've done. But the system, the Babylonian system, Mystery Babylon, the harlot, is going to be in control up until the time of the abomination of desolation, the sixth trumpet. Okay, the sixth trumpet, the beast hates the harlot. Why does he hate the harlot? The beast and the 10 kings hate the harlot. It's because she flipped roles on everybody. And he wants to be the king and he wants to be over her. And actually, he doesn't even want her anymore. He does not want the cabal. All right, so the system, the Babylonian system, is going to exist and be running the show through the first 4 seals, through the time when the beast, the 7th king, the rider on the white horse shows up, wars, peace taken from the earth with the 2nd horse, famine, price controls, all of that with the 3rd horse. The 4th one, when death and Hades ride out and people are killed through pestilence and wild animals and all of that. That's the harlot. Okay, that is the harlot at work. That is the cabal who is doing this. And then when the 5th seal, martyrs show up, it's still the cabal who is doing this. It is the harlot who is killing Christians. She is the one who is drunk with the blood of the saints. Okay? She's the one who's drunk with the blood of the saints. God has chosen an hour, a day, a month, and a year. It's already been established since way back here. He said, there is a day when I'm going to do away with that horrible, awful Babylonian fake kingdom cabal system. And it's going to be at the 6th trumpet when the harlot is destroyed by fire, smoke, and sulfur. There's going to be a group of entities who are working to destroy this cabal. It's going to be the beast, the 10 kings who all hate her. Also, there's going to be 4 angels that are released from the river Euphrates, and I believe they're going to act as generals for a 200 million man army who is going to basically not only do away with the individual people who are part of the cabal, but also the place where they have their headquarters in, I believe it's going to be Europe. Personally, that's my opinion about that. Places like Brussels and City of London and the Vatican, these are all centers of demonic power where these people get their power from. Now, I believe that the cabal, the people who are running the show right now with the Great Reset and all of that, have been lied to by the demons. They don't know that they're not going to be a part of the beast kingdom. They've been told that they're going to have a place there. Now, when the harlot is destroyed, we see her sitting. I sit as a queen. I'm not going to be a widow. I'm not going to be, have anything bad happen to me. I'm this rich, awesome, incredibly powerful entity. These people think they're going to be a part of the whole beast system. But this entity is called a harlot for a reason. Satan uses this system until he brings in his false son, who is going to begin to reign with a different kind of kingdom. Satan calls this system that happened before a whore. You use a whore, okay? You use her, but she is not the wife for your son. She is not going to be the wife of the beast. She is not going to rule and reign with him. She thinks she is, but she's not. She's going to be destroyed right here when the beast begins his 42-month reign until the second coming of Christ. The destruction of this present world system, including all those people who are part of that Great Reset, New World Order, they think that they're going to be a part of what the beast is doing. They're not. They're going to be destroyed. There is going to be a remnant of those people who are left. Revelation 9 tells us that there are some who survive this, who don't give up their worship of demons or their sorceries. The sorceries and the worship of demons is all a part of the cabal that is in the world right now. And once the system is majorly destroyed right here, there's still going to be some of those people left. And that's why it's going to be right here toward the end with the bowl judgments, that when God begins to pour out his wrath, that he's going to remember Babylon the Great and those few people who are still trying to operate under the radar, trying to get their system back up again, and he's going to destroy them once and for all at the seventh bowl. So their system will kind of continue until it's destroyed, and I believe that's just prior to the return of Christ. All right, so this is an overview of how this works. We're going to get into all of this in greater detail. I'm going to show you Bible passages that go talk about this more in another video, but this is how the story runs. And so we'll be out of here before the Great Reset brings in their famines, their engineered famines, their pestilences, and their wars that are going to be absolutely horrendous, taking peace from the earth, pitting people against one another. This is going to be all a part of the stuff that's going to be happening after we're gone. We're seeing the beginning of this taking place, though. We're seeing how this can definitely be a possibility through the things that are going on in our world today. And one of the things that we're going to see before the harlot is totally destroyed, we read that she is made naked. In other words, she's exposed. People are going to see this cabal for what it is, for all the horrible things that they've done, for all their, I don't even want to tell you all the terrible things that this cabal does in an effort to get more and more power from the dark side. It's demonically empowered. It's satanically inspired. And they've been lied to that they're going to have a part of the beast thing. They're not. They're not at all. So the seals 1 through 5 are going to be part of what the harlot is doing. This Great Reset, this New World Order system, bringing in famine and wars and despair and death and orchestrating all of that. The beast will be allowed to come out at that time and be underneath the system of the harlot. And then there's going to be fifth seal martyrs. These are people who've been martyred by the harlot, who is drunk with the blood of the saints. The beast is never said to be drunk with the blood of the saints, only the harlot. So the cabal that's in power right now hates believers. It's anti-Christian. It's anti-Christ. Okay, it's anti-God. It's part of the rebellion that happened back here in Babel, and it's only gotten worse. And the language confusion, which sort of mitigated and kind of postponed the inevitable acceleration of violence and all of that, well, that's is no longer working. Language is not a barrier anymore for any of this stuff since basically the computer age. If God doesn't step in soon, there aren't going to be people left. They're going to be gone. So I believe that what we're seeing in the world is sort of the outworking of what the harlot is doing, what the cabal, the Great Reset, however you want to look at this, they think they're bringing in the beast empire, the beast kingdom, and that they will still be running the show with the beast there. And they have been lied to. It's wrong, 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 wrong. That is not what's going to happen. And part of the reason I think that Revelation is written in code with symbols and imagery and not in chronological order is to hide some of this from the people who are doing this. I think Satan knows. Satan knows all about how this is going to come down. But the people who are part of the present day cabal, they don't know any of this. So we're going to continue looking at this some more in the next video. I'll leave a comment in the comment section. I hope that this has been kind of enlightening for you, that even if you don't agree with me, I hope that you'll kind of consider what I'm saying anyway. Take it to the Lord. Be prayerful about it, because there's so much confusion going on in the church today about who's the harlot. You know, the United States is the harlot, Israel's the harlot, the Roman Catholic Church is the harlot. And yes, they're all a part of it. If they're a part of the cabal who runs the show, yes, they're a part of it, but they're not the whole thing. And it's the Babylonian system is not new. It's very old. It goes all the way back to Nimrod and to those people who said, let us make a name for ourselves. All right, so we'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.